Thank you, Laura, for the invitation. It's a really good opportunity to do actually maybe novel exercise. On Friday afternoon, everybody is tired. So let's go back to, how do I? Okay. More than 2,000 years ago. So basically, I tried to draw a historical analogy between ancient Chinese warring days during the time of 5th to 3rd century before Common Era. So with current East Asian international relations. So here is a sketch map of ancient Chinese warring days with 7 days. Here you have Qin. Okay, so on the west, and you have Qi on the east, and middle you have Zhou, Yan, Wei, Han, and Chu. So I think people are familiar with this kind of a map. So then we can have look at current East Asian international relations also. Yeah, if we don't include Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is not sovereign entity, and if we regard ASEAN as one entity in international relations, we have pretty similar actually sketch map like this. So China in the position of Qin, and USA in the position of Qi, ASEAN in the position of Chu. Then you have North Korea, South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. So similarities are not so actually limited to this period, just number, 7 days, geographic locations are similar, to the first one. Yes, somebody may ask the question, so how about, the Asian Chinese warring days period as international system? Actually, in international studies, people agree that, that's international system, because actually we differentiate the Zhangguo warring states period from spring and autumn period, basically because there was no any central authority in the later period warring state period. But within the actually with spring and autumn period, still even the Zhou it was very weak, but there was actually central authority. So basically that is international system. So I tried to find some similarities. So basically, actually pretty many. And these three, I think, are useful to my discussion of the comparison. First of all, a rise of challenger. A rising power that presents or is perceived as major threat to other states. In current East Asian, when I talk about state, also I include state-like entities, international relations. So and also threat to existing interstate order. So in the first figure, we have Qin, and in the current figure, we have China. Then there is actually declining state power with really complicated relations with the challenger. Of course. So traditionally, there is Qi, and today you have the United States. And the relationship between actually state power and the challenger is not so simple just as confrontation. Actually, they accumulated really complex connection with each other. And the third similarity is for those smaller states. Yeah, so they actually practice swings between the two countries. Particularly for the current map, I would like to say those so-called smaller states are not really small. Yeah, just as Professor Wang mentioned. Japan, the third largest economy, and also South Korea is a very big economy. ASEAN together, of course. Yeah, very important. Taiwan is not small actually, economically. So, but also, here we have North Korea. This is different. All those smallest states except Korea in that current map have traditionally been cooperating with the state's power. In Chinese warring states period, which was Qi, and today, which is the United States. But actually, the challenger, Qin or China, later develops actually really tremendous connection with each of them. Later we'll discuss about so-called Hezong versus Lianheng. Yeah. So of course, differences are more fundamental, I would say. Okay. First of all, I have to say, as many already mentioned, okay, so state survival is not the central concern for the current international relation in East Asia. So the possibility is really little that the Russian threat would conquer other countries of turning them, into part under its sovereignty. But except regarding Taiwan, so China, of course, always want to, conquer Taiwan, never hide this intention. And those maritime territory disputes in East China Sea and South China Sea, I think that's not really big concern for state survival, but it could be really big problem for international security in the region, but not for interstate. State survival. So geoeconomics preoccupies the concerns in interstate relations. I try to, because this paper focuses on political economy, I try to push security concerns into the background. The later you will see, as my colleagues already mentioned, okay, security concerns, of course, still very important. But anyway, today, even concerns on state security are also often economic centered, particularly in East Asia, and also their achievement, their actualization is economy backed. So you have to use your economic power to support your state security. So I have also argued that with globalization, there has been a trend I call the rise of economic state. Basically, the economic state can be simply defined as people take economics as politics. So state pays increasing attention to its economic performance, and state legitimacy is more and more depending on its economic performance. So the PRC, of course, takes the lead in this regard. The Chinese economic state has been really powerful and basically successful through particularly its embracement of globalization. I would also like to argue that its rise in the United States has been also discernible, even spasmodic, often effective, but recently it's gained new momentum with Trump administration policy of de-globalization. So when Trump actually claims that, make American great again. So he emphasized those parameters of greatness. Infrastructure, employment rate, things like that. International economic competitiveness. Nothing about those founding fathers actually parameter of greatness, like civic rights, like democracy, things like that. So that's actually an indicator of the rise of American economic state. So this actually, to me, explains the recent emergence of PRC-USA rivalry, because both engaged into this kind of game of economic competition. Yes, so in the classic map of Chinese warring states, there are two contending strategies, so-called 合纵 and 连横. Roughly, defined, 合纵 basically means multilateral coalition against the Russian threat. From the map, you could see literally 合纵 means cooperation vertically. So those states except Qin, so when they cooperate with each other, so the relationship are vertical, so called 合纵. 连横 means the Russian power tried to develop a bilateral coalition with each of those 6 states. So it's连横, so it means connecting horizontally. So just from Qin to develop a connection with each of those countries. The result, everybody knows that it took place more than 2,000 years ago. So the result was very clear. So the failure of 合纵, the prevalence of 连横, and eventually through the success of 连横, so Qin, conquered each of all the 6 days. Eventually, Qi, the status quo power. In 221, before Common Era, establishment of Qin Empire, so-called unification of China. So how about today? I would say, my actually revisionist version of observation of 连横, 合纵 and 连横 basically means economic centered. That's what I mean with revisionists. Contemporary, okay, of course, we talk about today's regional international relation in East Asia. So you could say Hezong can be defined as strategy of all other states except the perceived threat in the map, which is China, promoting their economic cooperation against the economic threat. And existing economic superpower would be especially enthusiastic for coordinating those smaller economies for this purpose. Do we have these kind of things? Yeah, economically, no. Yeah, so as I say, the absence of a Hezong. So the United States doesn't practice Hezong strategy today, and other states, they did. They don't do it, of course. And Lianheng means the rising economic powers, emphasize and promote its own closer economic connection with each of other 6 states for the ultimate aim of becoming the new economic hegemon to which all those states actively have to bend. So in this regard, you could say China is powerful, is actively aggressive in pursuing this strategy. I don't want to go to the detail, but this academic figure can give you a general, situation of China and the U.S. their bilateral trade connections with all those, entities showed on my map. This is about the USA and China's, bilateral trade connections because the statistics, these statistics, are from the United States. So these from China could be very different. But you could see the interdependence, it's really, really deep, right? And also, China's particularly, economic trade connection with ASEAN is really, really, deep. It's really similar to actually Chinese warring state period. At that time, Qing also first developed, connection with Chu, just as the position of ASEAN. Then Qi, did it for power. So those countries, United States, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN, in last year, they were the top 4 trading partners of China. Oh, Hong Kong. Hong Kong is number 4. But anyway, so Hong Kong is not so there. But anyway, so they actively occupied really, position of top trading partner of China. And Taiwan is not far away. Taiwan is the 11th largest trading partner of China in last year. So you could say, okay, U.S. bilateral trade connections with each of them, okay, there is a gap, between China's actively connection with them and U.S. connection with them. So I would say, between the rivals, the cartoon is from recent issue of magazine Economist. It's talked about those American allies between, bullies from Trump administration and also from Xi Jinping, leadership. I also argue that not only between bullies, but also lures, particularly from the Chinese side. So when you have actively, you try to use Hezong strategy, but the lures can work really well to make, Lianheng strategy work. But actually now, without any Hezong strategy, so lures from China are really big. So basically, I think for those states, maybe except North Korea, so there would be split from within between their security concerns and economic concerns. For security concerns, I think many of my colleagues already emphasized that. Okay, they would like to, yes, I would like to make alliance with the United States. But for economic concerns, I really want to lean to the Chinese side. So particularly when the United States takes policy of de-globalization, and China actively not only practice bilateral connection with those countries, still want some multilateral, also, mechanism, I would say those countries would be really split from within. In this regard, I think for pretty long time, they would be struggle actively for, options. That's what I mean, East Asian disorder. Thank you.